Rigaroga here, and you're you. Let's just leave it at that. We'll agree to agree. Yeah. I don't know. I need more tea. We're going to be taking a look at Dark Force Incursion by DR Games. You can download the basic rules for free and the first 5 maps, and then I supported this on Kickstarter, so there was a crowdfunding effort to do a whole bunch of expansions. And if you didn't support it in crowdfunding, those will appear on Drive-Through RPG and stuff like that. So there's links. You can take a look at the game and the Kickstarter that happened, and to get an idea of what's coming. But I wanted to start playing it and see how it goes. We're going to start out by reading the rules. Of all things, who knew? So Dark Force Incursion is a roll and write game that is for one person, taking about 20 to 40 minutes to play. You'll need one of the DFI maps, plenty of which are free to download at the DR Games website or Drive-Through RPG, and a 1 6-sided die and a pencil. Your land has been invaded by a powerful dark force. The speed of the invasion was frightening, and they have taken all the defensive forts in your land. In desperation, you have gathered your dwindling army and now must push out to recapture these forts, to secure the safety of your people and drive. Okay. And drive. Apparently this is Road Warrior. Anyhow, it's drive the dark forces from your land, I imagine. I suppose I could take a look at one of the previous rules. This is version 1.3, so hopefully that will be corrected in the next version. And if you get it on Drive-Through RPG, you'll always have access to the newest rules. Aim. The aim of the game is to claim back more than half of the forts on the map. The number will vary based upon the map, but ultimately, if the Dark Force defends half or more of the forts on the map, you have lost. You can claim a fort hex by placing one of your armies on it, which means drawing an army across the little border to it. This must be achieved before the Dark Force amasses 25 armies. If the Dark Force raises 25 armies before you reclaim the forts, they have contained your rebellion and the war is lost. For half-size maps, this is 13 armies. For the half-size maps were one of the stretch goals for the crowdfunding. So the number of Dark Forces raised changes for that, for 13. First turn, locate the starting point. This is a star in a circle in a hex. This is where your army has gathered and will move out from. In this hex, write the numbers 1 to 6 inside, up against a separate side for each number, starting at the top, as can be seen in the illustration there. This is the core element to the game. In every hex you encounter, numbers will be written clockwise around the inside of that hex shape, starting with the number that you rolled. Every turn you roll 1 die, and the die indicates where your army moves. In the example given there in the top corner, it is a 2 that's rolled, and so a new sequence of numbers is written with the 2 starting on the side next to the first 2. This means the numbers are offset, and the number 1 is no longer at the top of that new hex. Circle the 2 2s, and this represents your army as it advances. Then each go always proceeds like this. Then each move proceeds like this. One hex branches out from a previous hex, showing that your army is moving out across the map. Don't forget that you are aiming to reach the forts on the map, and so that you can claim them back. Next turns. There are more options now. You can roll from any hex you like during any turn. Select the hex first of the hexes that you have already moved into, and then roll. And you always select the hex that you're rolling from first. You don't roll and then select a hex. You could go back to the starting point and roll there again, For this example, on the sheet, they'll use the second hex and then roll again. And here they roll a 4. So the hex and the number are placed accordingly to the north. The 4s are circled and your army is placed. The circled pair makes up one of your armies. Now, if we take that go again, if we roll back and do that again and roll a 2, duplicating the first roll, then there's a consequence called a blocked hex. Duplicating the previous roll always results in blocked hexes. These represent an area of the land where the Dark Force has taken control and the defenses are too strong to break through. Your army's path is blocked, and you will be unable to enter this space for the rest of the game. Importantly, when placing a blocked hex, you must move clockwise around to the next available hex, as seen below in that example, where there is a space. Write the numbers in, starting with the blocked duplicate number next to the previously rolled hex, and then bold outline the edges. The adjacent numbers will not match up. You cannot roll from a blocked hex. It is out of bounds, and you must go to another hex and roll. No army is drawn on that blocked hex. The Dark Force appears. Let's go back to turn 2. In the example, here a 5 is rolled. The 5s are circled, and then the army is placed. In turn 3, a 4 is rolled, the hex is claimed, and the numbers are placed in circle, as can be seen below. Or actually, up to the corner. This is the path your army is moving to reach a fort. Because the newest claimed hex in the above example is next to another tile that you previously placed, it is vulnerable to the Dark Force army, as you may have been tracked. You can see that the number 3 is next to the 6. They do not match, and so therefore they cannot be claimed by our forces. But if the 3 is rolled from this hex, the Dark Force will appear, having found you, and one of their dark armies will be placed between the hex and over these two numbers, as you can see in that last example on the page. It's the dark line that covers that what had previously been the 6 and the 3. So to recap, the number 3 is rolled. It is next to the 6. These numbers don't match, and a Dark Force army is drawn over the two numbers. The Dark Force army appears as a black rectangle, looking noticeably different from your own circled armies. Even worse, if a 3, which now represents a Dark Force army, is rolled again from that same hex, move clockwise around that hex, and if there is one of your armies, cover it with a black rectangle, representing the fact that the Dark Force has defeated that army, as seen in the top example in that page. Further, even worse than that, if the 3 is rolled again, and there are none of your armies to take and fill in, move clockwise around the hex and block the first free hex, as per the rules for blocked hexes. Also, write the numbers, but not only that, place a Dark Force army across the two connecting numbers, as seen in the bottom example on the first column. The diagram shows this new hex added to the previous tiles above that the Dark Force has claimed. Not only is that hex blocked, but it also has an enemy army in it, which contributes to the overall Dark Force army total, which, as previously mentioned, must not reach 25. Now, if you were to unwisely roll from the same hex again, unwisely because you're very unlikely to get a good roll from that, the one with all the Dark Army forces in it, a 3, 4, or 5 would see another blocked hex and Dark Force appear in the next available space clockwise around that hex. The risk increases the more Dark Force armies appear. Important note, if any claimed hexes should result in other numbers matching a hex next to it, then you circle them with one of your armies immediately. So for example, if you place one and it's rotated such that it matches the two numbers, like a 2 and a 2, a 3 and a 3 match, then even though that wasn't your initial army move, you go ahead and you get to circle that too. The main mechanics. Those were the main mechanics of the game. To recap on some of these rules: place numbers clockwise, circle numbers that match when the next hex is placed, duplicate rolls mean trouble and result in a blocked hex, rolling different numbers that are situated next to another number brings out a Dark Force army across those two numbers. You can move from a hex that does not contain one of your armies if it is not blocked. If 25 Dark Force armies appear on your map, your lands have been overrun and you have lost. And then you keep turns rolling until either you win or the Dark Force army increases to the point that you are lost. Capturing or losing forts. The way to capture a fort is to place an army in the hex by rolling a matching number. In the example below, on the last example on that second column, 3s were rolled, and the army moved into the fort hex and claimed it. The fort is now yours, even if it becomes blocked for some reason. You can even claim a fort if a Dark Force army is located there. This represents the fact that you know the land and the building, and once fortified inside, you can hold out. You're not caught unawares this time. You can also lose all hope of recapturing a fort if it is blocked before you can get an army there. The fort is now lost for good. As per usual, once a hex is blocked, you cannot enter it or roll from it, although a Dark Force army may appear from it. Make sure, in this case, when they're blocked, that you shade the fort tile, as it'll help you distinguish that is one that you can't possibly capture, and you didn't capture it previously. If you cannot reach a fort, you cannot win it back and have lost it for good. Remember, fort hexes can be blocked. Land features. Mountains feature in the first wave of maps from DR games. These contain areas and restrict movement. If you roll a number into a hex that is next to a mountain space, then that hex is blocked. In this example, the last picture on the first column there, a 5 was rolled, and so the hex that you rolled from is blocked as it was next to the mountain. This represents the fact that the army that entered that mountainous area was lost in the hazardous terrain. The edge of the map. If you encounter the edge of the map with a roll, in effect your roll takes you off the map, then the hex you rolled from is blocked off. This is the same effect as the mountain hex and represents the fact that the army has been lost in unknown territory, or went AWOL. They fled. Winning and losing. To win the game, you must claim more forts than the Dark Force defends. Many maps have 7 forts, and so you would need to claim 4 to win in that setup. If you are playing one of the half-size map that feature 5 forts, you need to claim back 3. Do not forget that if 25 dark armies appears on the map, your lands have been overrun and you've lost. So keep a tally of that. The newest map design from DR Games includes a list of a check boxes for how many dark armies appear and also how many forts there are. So you can actually keep that tally on the map itself easily. Additional content. You can download the rules and maps from the DR Games website or Drive Through RPG. They're free. The basic ones are. Additional content will be published soon. Please also note that the rulebook has been designed to save on printing costs by reducing the amount of color in the booklet. You can go to the DR Games website. I'll have the link down below, but it's drmgames.co.uk. And this game was designed by Toby Lancaster, and you can link up to our social media on there's Twitter, Instagram, Facebook if you search for Dark Realm Maps and DR Games. And also check out the Board Game Geek website, where there's also apparently posting images or two. Toby Lancaster says, "The idea for this roll and write game came to me while I was in isolation during the coronavirus outbreak. I wanted to put out a free one-player game and signal that from dark times can come hope. It's no coincidence that some of the aspects of this game parallel the world and what it faces in this moment. I hope you enjoy Dark Force Incursion and that it takes your mind off any troubles you may have. Best wishes, Toby Lancaster." And then there's a note about the expansions. But there's more. In May 2020, the expansions for Dark Force Incursions were successfully funded on Kickstarter. The backers all received their copies in mid-May. True, but if you were not a backer, then do not worry, because on the 1st of June 2020, the expansions are coming to Drive-Thru RPG, and there's a link in the description below to where they'll appear. What do they feature? Let's take a look. That's a little hard to read, isn't it? Let's zoom in on that. Forest expansion. With the new forest hex, your armies can evade the Dark Force, but may become hopelessly lost. Marsh expansion. The Marsh hex represents a dangerous and unpredictable environment that blocks your army's progress to victory. Lakes expansion. The lake hex can sweep up your army and carry them great distances and open up new territories. Muster and ambush. Muster spaces are hexes where the locals or any stray troops have mustered and await your arrival to join the army to fight the Dark Force. Ambush spaces are hexes representing dangerous passages or corridors that your army must move through. All right, cool. And that's it. That's the rules for Dark Force Incursion. So thanks for hanging out with me as I read through those, and hopefully that made a little bit of sense. It'll make a lot more sense as we actually work through the rules on an actual game, the first game that we play. And so join me next time, and I'll see you then. Bye.